Welcome back to Born to be a Sports Agent. This is part two with DeMaurice Smith, the former executive director of the NFL Players Association. And we are going to talk about the emotional toll this particular role in the union took on D and his family, him being an outsider when he became and was elected the executive director. And we're going to talk about whether or not the combine is actually good for the players. Please get Dee's book, Turf Wars. It is a fantastic book, and there's so much to learn from this book. And every time I talk to Dee, I learn so much. And we just have a great time, and we could probably talk forever, but I'm just glad to have him back in part two. Okay, Dee, we're back with part
We're
two of
back.
your book, Turf Wars. And I'm
Absolutely.
getting a hard copy between the last time I saw you.
Oh, that's awesome.
I know. I love this book. I
Thank
love
you.
this book.
Thank you.
It's,
Thank you.
it's like one of my
Thank
favorite books now. I'm going to recommend it to the class I teach, my sports law and practice class.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I,
But I,
yeah, that would be cool. I think a lot of a lot of college kids, especially if you're just thinking about sports in any aspect, it's understand the thing you want to get into, right?
yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
totally. And this will make them understand. I also have them read Court of Justice, which is the book about O'Bannon. And
Yep.
that makes them understand a whole different
Yep.
perspective, too. So,
Yep.
but let's talk about your book. So, one of the questions I have for you was when I was reading the book, I saw that you talked about how much it impacted you really like emotionally and your family while you were working through all of these different issues with the union. So, I just wonder how did you handle that? Because that's hard when not everybody is on the same page and they're being hard on you and
Yeah.
others, as we've talked about when we'd be at union meetings. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Look, I think these jobs, I think it's the right thing to tell people that these jobs take a lot out of you because I think that what we've artificially constructed is that if you really, really care about your job, if you want to do it the right way, if you want to take on the battles that you have to take on, hold on, we've created this sort of artificial world that somehow this stuff doesn't come at a cost. And the reality is it does. And I thought that over the years that, whether I was a homicide prosecutor or the 14, 15 years I was at the NFLPA, I thought that I managed the stress well. But this was the first time where I realized that I might be managing it the way that I need to manage it, but it's taking a toll on my family and it's changing the person that I am. And
Hmm.
I think people I don't think enough leaders or people who are in business spend enough time being vulnerable and real about what these jobs sometimes do to you. And I think that's the only way to hopefully encourage people to people to do it because you can these jobs are, I don't need to tell you, these jobs are hard. And also, I guess the other thing I wanted to point out in the book is I think we also do a terrible job at law schools and business schools talking about um, if you're a woman, you're going to have a different journey.
Yes.
And if you're a person of color, you're going to have a different journey. And I think everybody at that school, or both of those schools, tend to teach everybody the same.
Right.
And I think that unless you're utterly brave with yourself, you're not going to be able to do the job that you need to do. And I think that if you're not incredibly brave with yourself, you don't want to tell the stories. So I wanted to tell both, but it was hard at times. I mean, football is an all-consuming thing, as you know, for reasons. If you are a spouse, kid, whatever in this business, you know for a fact that, man, the kids go to school the next day, and if your dad's team or, where you work, if that team wins or loses, or if they're the story,
Hmm.
or if they're on the front page of the sports page, or if their name is being batted around on ESPN, you'd like to believe that your kids are insulated from that stuff, and they are, when they come home and you're dad, but they aren't
No,
when
they're not. No.
they're at school and everybody is talking about it. And that's just a real thing. And for me, it was a thing we certainly managed and got through, and I know it made my family stronger, but there came a time where I just kind of embraced the uniqueness of my journey.
Mm.
And to a certain extent, John Gruden forced me to do that to a certain extent. Given the story that came out about him. But yes, people like us will always have a different journey, but I'll tell you what, um, people like us tend to be pretty tough.
Yeah. Believe me, I didn't last this long in this business without being really tough. But I think,
Tough,
but I
really,
think that I did learn that from my parents.
100%.
I do believe
100%.
that. And then as I've evolved as a person, I've gotten tougher, honestly, because I
Oh,
can block a lot of, we were just at a game and stuff happens and there was fans saying stuff in the back and some some of the wives were getting upset and I was like, you know what? They're here to be fans. They're paying for a ticket. That's why they're here. And we need the fans. So
oh,
I've learned with the fan stuff, like I just kind of block them out, truthfully. It's like, yeah, players probably going to make a mistake and oh well, that's, there's two sides.
and the ticket gives you the right to absorb the game in the way that you want to absorb the game.
Yeah.
And that's what the ticket gives you. What the ticket does, there's a whole lot of stuff the ticket doesn't give you. Right. So let's be 100% clear about that. And so that's, you do get tough because you do figure out, okay, there's boxes and this is the box we're in and this is the box you're in. But man, there's some things that ticket and your ability to be a fan does not give you a license and unbridled, unfettered, you know, inviolate box right to do anything you want. It just doesn't.
Right. But sometimes people don't know who they're sitting by either. You know what I mean? They could be
Well,
a player's parents or,
by the way, and we've all been to those games
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and they don't care,
No, they
right?
don't. Not if
They
they've had a
they,
lot to drink.
they don't well, they don't know. But
It's a whole
you know,
other thing.
so I always like to keep that balance and we talked about it a little bit before. I mean, I don't nearly get into the arguments at the bar with, Bubba who's had a lot to drink who wants to express his feelings about the NFL or NFL players. I don't nearly get into those fights as I used to, but I was always kind of like, hey man, your ticket gives you the right to watch the game, enjoy the game, say anything you want. I mean, I don't care. I really don't. However, when you want a player to somehow conform to your sense of being a fan, you don't that doesn't come with your ticket, right?
Yeah.
Um, so you want to critique how the guy performs on the field, man, knock yourself out. You want to talk about, your feelings about who he wants to marry, how about this, man? Just watch the freaking game, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and by the way, that's just sort of the way that it is. But look, football, NFL football, football in general has become the cultural center of America for what I could argue both good and bad, probably mostly for bad. And so as the cultural center, it is this epicenter, right, for all sorts of things to play out both on and off the field. And it just does. And so, teams and cities and football, man, a lot of fans want to turn that into a referendum on their city, their history, their life. If they see people on the field or see people doing things off the field, it's a reflection of all of the prejudices and thoughts that they have. I mean, football is just the cultural epicenter. And whatever way fans want to engage that, if it becomes more of a game to them, and it has for some fans, it is both a window and a mirror of where America is. It just is.
Yeah. What?
And yeah, so I mean, that's why I teach. I mean, it takes everybody like week 7 in my class to realize that I'm not teaching a sports class.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Oh, they think it's glamorous, right?
oh, well, they think it's glamorous and they think, and look, the title of my class is Leadership, Law, and Ethics in Sport.
Okay.
And by week 7, everybody realizes that I'm not really, it's not about the sport part. I'm really teaching leadership, law, and ethics
Ethics.
in America.
Yeah.
And I'm just using football or sport in order to frame the way that we think about these things.
Yeah.
Um, and the reason why sport becomes such a great way of teaching it is everybody's comfortable saying the quiet part out loud in sport. Everybody's a little bit less comfortable saying the quiet part out loud in business. I mean, think about it. Great example. Equal pay. You can get a bunch of people in a room and you can stand up and you can talk about the glass ceilings that you faced.
Yep.
You can talk about the harassment that you have to deal with, the misogyny, all of the things. And I will guarantee in that room, if you ask people to raise their hands and said, let's have a discussion about this, dead,
Silence. They're afraid of the hard issues.
dead silence. Hey, this argument about the WNBA and how those women are paid, not how much they're paid, but how they're paid, or the argument in women's soccer for the U.S. women's national team, how they were paid for the World Cup versus the way the men were paid
Paid.
the World Cup. Look, everybody wants to talk about that,
Yeah.
right?
But they don't really want to
I
talk
don't think
about
that
the
she should
underlying
make,
issue. Yeah.
right. I don't think she should make, it's crazy to think that she should make as much as LeBron, or it's crazy to think that the women's soccer players should make as much as the men's soccer players. And I'm always like, hey, man, that's not the question I asked. The question I asked is, should there be a difference in how they're paid? Oh, well, no, D. I mean, they should, from frame, they should be paid exactly the same way. Would it would it surprise you to learn that they're not?
Yeah.
Right. So the way FIFA was paying the men was different in the way FIFA was paying the women.
And what was their justification?
Well, in sport, well, that's where the rubber meets the road in
Right.
sport, right? Because in sport, sport is the only business I know of where people consider themselves an expert because they watch it on TV, right? I mean, I
True.
love Grey's Anatomy. I'm not going to be doing brain surgery. And and I'm a lawyer, and people will watch their shows, their shows about lawyer and courtrooms. I mean, like, okay, very few of those people would then go, hey, you know what? I'm gonna go down to the courthouse and I'm gonna try that case. Well, no, nobody does that. In sport, because people watch it on TV, everybody believes they're an expert.
Good point. Yeah. Well, interesting in your book, you talked about when you first were, you know, they voted you in
Yep.
and you were considered an outsider. And I started laughing because you said that Steve Smith like gave you the evil eye. Now you got to know that
Oh,
Steve played for my dad, right?
oh
So
yeah.
I've known Steve for a long time. And
Yeah.
it didn't surprise me that Steve was the one giving you the evil eye because
Tough,
he's a
tough dude.
yeah, so I started laughing. I was like,
No,
we used to
no.
call him Steve on when he played for my dad. But I I started cracking up because that is such his personality. And I love him to death, but he
Oh,
he would totally
he is so hardcore. But and I talk about it in Turf Wars. That meeting was just one of those meetings where I was like, first of all, why is this cat so angry? I mean,
I
like,
can
why?
see why.
And by the way, part of it is because it's Tuesday, whatever. But
Oh, that's just
that
Steve.
guy came after me so hard, and I tend to run a little hot myself. I'll
Yeah.
be the first person to admit that. So he and I have this just dust up in about 30 seconds. That is just it goes from like a 2 to a 75 in like 10 seconds. And finally I'm like, well, hey, look, how about this? Why don't you let me get through the meeting? If you have any questions, ask me a question and I'm going to answer your question. Are we good? And fast forward, Steve became one of the best union reps we've ever had.
Oh, I'm sure he would fight. He's a fighter. Steve is a complete fighter, and he was always the underdog. That's how he was as a
Yep.
player. And I mean, he's so funny. I mean,
And also took the time to understand it, right? And
oh
he
yeah, he's smart.
understood what a lot of even union reps sometimes don't understand. This is a fight paradigm. It just is.
Yes.
And you've got a certain group of people who feel like even you as an agent, that somehow it's kind of like the magic words. You're going to walk in to do somebody's contract, and somehow you're going to utter magic words, and the person on the other side is going to go, "Oh, Jill, oh, I
Of
didn't,
course.
oh, I didn't, oh, yeah, here is the bag of money." No,
No, that's not how it works.
it's not how it works. And and so you get people who will then stand up and say, well, I just think D, you're too combative, or why are we always fighting all the time? Or why do we have to be so antagonistic? Because the other side will absolutely steamroll you
Yep.
if you're not willing to push back.
I 100% agree. You have to be, you got to stand your ground. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Whatever the issue is. So
I
this
mean,
is it,
whatever the issue is.
right. Well, and I know, and it could be a small issue, but becomes a big issue. I mean, it's a big, the worst thing I ever see him do is these injury settlement agreements. I hate
Oh,
those. I would be like, don't ever, I would meet with guys and I'd say, if you don't pick me as your agent, whatever you do, don't ever sign an injury settlement. Those are not in
never,
your favor. Don't ever do
never, ever,
that'd be my message. I mean, that would be my,
ever.
yeah, like don't, they're not having you sign those because they're an advantage for you.
No one is doing you a favor.
No, they're not.
And it becomes such, look, if I would have had if every union rep was like Steve Smith, right? I, I'll take that job any day of the week. Any day of the week. It doesn't
Because he's
doesn't mean
willing to fight. He's willing to fight.
willing to fight, and doesn't start off with this presupposition that somehow, having dinner and being able to go to a show with the owners somehow means that you're going to get a better deal. I mean,
Yeah.
when in the history of the National Football League have the NFL owners given players anything?
Nope.
Not a thing. And so you have to sit down with an incredibly young person who comes out of a college system, who most of them have never had sort of the first job, right? The paper route, the pizza parlor, the
Yeah.
working at the gas station, where you tend to learn really harsh lessons about what management thinks of you, right? I mean, and so they come into this system and somebody says, welcome to the NFL family. And they're really happy to be here. And they actually believe that when they join the Jets or the Giants or the Chiefs, that they're joining a family. No,
No.
because none of you are in the will,
Yeah.
right? You're just not.
No.
And 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 so you're only there because if you're coming out of college, you're there because you're only one of the best 250 people in the world
And you are what they need at that time.
at that
That time.
time.
Yes, is the key word.
Yes, it is clearly, and everyone wants to believe something different. And then when you get into a negotiation room, like for collective bargaining, and you're trying to prepare people for that, there is nothing magical that we're going to say in a negotiation room, right? I mean, my job is to make sure we understand things and frame things and do the research. But, you know, for us, for players, just like for any union member or individual person dealing with a team, what's the leverage on your side?
I don't think I never felt like you ever had the leverage. I did a ton of research
Yeah,
and try to compare. The best thing I could do is be as prepared as I could based on this player's ability and then educate the player so that they
correct.
aren't disappointed when it's not what they think it should be, which is a hard
Right.
thing to do. That's the harder part. And coming
That's it.
out of college, D, they want somebody, or at the time, they wanted somebody to pay for training and give them upfront money, which I refused to do. Okay, I was
Yeah.
one of the few
That's a
because I was
whole
like, wait a
nother
minute,
conversation,
yeah,
right?
yeah, I'm not a bank. I'm a
Right.
lawyer, and but that's their mentality was if I ran faster, I was going to get picked. I was like, no, you already did everything. You did your film is 99% of the evaluation. The rest of this is just I'm not sure why we're doing it. I still couldn't figure that out either.
Right.
I used to
Right.
argue with the scouts about that. It's like, why are you doing this? Why are we doing this combine? Why are we what is the point?
Why are we doing this combine?
I
Again,
don't like the combine.
I hate the combine. I mean, I always felt that the combine was the most reductionist system I've ever seen. And it literally does not serve the interest of the player at all.
No, people would get injured. People would get there would be something that would come up maybe on their medical.
Right.
Um,
Oh, well, and remember, and the medical, to me, the medical is the worst aspect of the combine system where you show up, you have to sign a medical waiver,
yeah,
and you have to be evaluated by all the
their
team.
doctors.
You have to go through the MRIs. And, and again, this is one of the great examples between why I teach, what I teach and use sport, because I always flip it around because everybody has this misunderstanding of what those medical examinations are in the combine. You know that even after you get drafted, even after you go through the combine, after you get drafted by a team, you have to show up at the team and do what?
Do another medical exam.
Do another medical exam. And that medical exam is to ensure the team that you are physically and medically capable of carrying out the duties of a player. So if that is the fact, then what are we doing the medicals at the combine for? The only reason we're doing the medicals at the combine is so that all the teams can know the condition of everybody pre-draft.
Right.
So, and every now and then, and again, you have a conversation about, um, medical intrusions or intrusions on the rights of workers in a crowded bar, and no one will say anything. No one will say anything. It's just like talking about the glass ceiling for women, and no one's going to say anything, right? Because everybody's afraid, and everybody's like, well, I don't know, I don't know. Man, for whatever reason, you get to sport. And even lawyers or business school students are like, yeah, man, of course you have to have the combine. I mean, a coach has to be able to do this, or a coach has to be able to do that, and the doctor should be able to do that. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Pump the brakes. First of all, the combine may have made sense up until the late 90s or early 2000s when you didn't have film on every player since they were 11. Right? I mean,
Plus, the scouts come through, D. They do, and they're
they,
really good at their
they
job.
already know.
Yeah, they go in, they talk to the coaches, they have a first guy on, they've got a cross checker,
They
and
already
yeah, they
They
already
know how fast you can run. They know how high you can jump. They
know
know all
us.
right. But so the way that I talk to the business school students and the law school students about just how egregious the combine is, I say, hey, look, you know what? I went to a pretty good law school. I did pretty well. Hey, that's great. What if we decide that after your third year of law school and after you pass the bar, to show that you have the proficiency to be a lawyer, what if we had a lawyer combine? And here's what we're going to do. We're going to take all the law school students who have passed the bar and gone through 3 years of law school, because that's a lot like college football.
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah,
tough.
we're gonna put them in a room somewhere in Indianapolis for a week, and we're gonna have the lawyers stand up and do law puzzles or stand up and do something about, how to do an opening argument, and then also we're gonna do a thing where we're gonna put you through, I don't know, an MRI. We're gonna take your blood. We're gonna manage your blood pressure, because after all, when I was a partner at a big law firm, um, we have to cover the insurance costs for our lawyers.
Hmm.
And maybe at a big law firm, I want to know who has a predisposition for hypertension.
Okay.
And I want to know who has a predisposition for obesity. I might even want to know if, the women lawyer is going to want to leave and have kids. So why don't I do a lawyer combine, and then we leave it up to the law firms to decide who we then hire?
Yeah.
There isn't a law student in America who would go, "You are out of your freaking mind," right? That's intrusive. That intrudes on my rights. That intrudes on my privacy. That intrudes on all sorts of personal things that have nothing to do with whether I can do the job. And I say, you're right. So why do we allow the National Football League to leverage a group of college athletes who are not yet union members,
Right. Not
who you
protected.
make them go through this literal medical grading system, so that what? You could have a linebacker who runs a 4-3, 4-4. You could have another guy. You could line them up side by side. They can run the same speed. They can lift the same weight. They can jump the same height. But I want to put one of them or both of them through an MRI, because I want to know, man, did that guy have a high school injury, right? That allows me to differentiate between two people who can do exactly the same thing? Yes. And I consider that, under what other system in America would we allow that to happen? We wouldn't.
Yeah, plus they're just trying to get out of the injury waivers later, right?
100%. And
I've
so,
seen him do this before, by the way.
well, and I remember I don't remember the year, but we had a year where a young man went to the combine, got drafted, went to training camp, and learned and had an episode at training camp that was heart related. Thankfully, he ended up being okay. Goes to the hospital, and for the first time, the young man learned that he had a genetic defect.
Was it the D lineman from Utah?
It might have been. I just don't
It
remember.
is. I think it was. Yeah.
But so that happens at training camp. The young man learns for the first time that he's got that defect. You know who knew about the defect at the combine? Everyone
But
else.
yeah, which is
So
just
the combine works in a way, and we started showing up at the combine and handing out waiver forms so that at least the players could sign a document that said that if they were going to take the medical information from them, they had to turn over the same medical information back to the player.
so the
But
player
the
has.
way the combine operates, they aren't delivering, at least when I was there, they weren't delivering the results of the medical exam back to the player. What are we doing? Under what scenario is that consistent with state or federal law? It's not.
No. So did you ever try to get that changed in the CBA, or
We
you?
can't because they're not union members.
Oh, so you just have to try to get all the players to agree not to go, basically.
If, do I think that the most enterprising thing for players right now, especially, for players who are getting NIL money right now,
Yeah.
the one thing that I always thought would have been a good idea, we just, Jill, there just comes up a time where you just run out of gas, right? And run out of time.
I just
I always thought that in the age of content now, the enterprising person that decides that they want to put on their own college event that is combine like,
Right.
but one where the best players, the best college players in the country come together, and instead of, the crazy things that you're doing at the combine, they don't have to go to the combine.
Right. No, I know. But most of them want to go, just so you know.
Most of them want to go.
Yes,
And that's the killer. They want to go.
they do.
So you can sit there and you can come up with all the reasons why they should not go. And if they're going to go, certainly don't perform. But weirdly, we had some athletes who decided, okay, I'm going to go to the combine. I'm not going to perform, but I am going to do the medical. You're better off performing than
And
than
no,
not doing.
yeah, don't do the medical and perform. Yeah, I get it.
Right? I mean, if you had to make a choice of which one is likely to be more detrimental to you down the road,
Oh, it's definitely the medical.
it's definitely the medical.
Yep.
And again, and sometimes that did not make me popular when I told people that. And we won't mention names, but there are many, many agents who would tell their players that, but there are also some agents who won't.
Well, there's a lot of people that are not very educated that are agents, D. I mean,
I know.
I'm just gonna
I know. Hey, look,
there's
yeah.
some great ones too. I mean,
Oh,
there's some great ones.
there
But
there were some great ones, and people like you and others were also very, I thought, very gracious and good to me when I came in, as this sort of outsider, and you gave me the benefit of the doubt, right? Um, but there are just some who are not great.
I just don't think they get it. I think some people don't get it.
Well, I certainly people go into it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I mean, they think, oh, I'm gonna make a ton of money. I'm gonna do this.
Oh, I get to
No.
be around players, and I'm in the
Yeah.
sport, is this, and I get to the sidelines, and I'm like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, no.
you're put it this way. If you're in love with the glitz of it,
You don't last. I don't think, well, maybe they do, but yeah, no, it's not that glamorous, I guess really what it
it's
is.
not glamorous, and it's hand to hand combat and warfare every day.
Going back to the book, how does somebody get your book?
Amazon, Barnes and Noble, any place where you want to shop. There's a lovely, I'm a big fan of independent bookstores. They all have it. The book was number one on Amazon for entertainment, the Audible
Yep.
book.
Yeah, I looked that up.
Um,
Yep.
I read the book, which was interesting, but I'm glad people enjoy it. But yeah, anybody can get the book anywhere they want. And, as always, it's always fun to talk with someone who understands the industry, like I do, and loves the players as much as I do. And, any player that's lucky enough, fortunate enough to have you as their advocate, man, that's a really lucky person.
Well, thanks, Dee. So, is there anything else you want to share about this book before we finish part
I
two?
would say this. If you are a fan of football, like really a fan of it, where you dig the players, you want to know everything about kind of your favorite player, what the guys are really like, Turf Wars is your book. If you want to understand the business of football, where it's literally the matrix behind how do GMs think, how owners think, how do agents deal with all of this? How does the union deal with all of this? For good or for bad, there's only one guy who's negotiated with all 31 of these people. And because I never wanted anything from them, I'm willing to call some of them not particularly smart. And some of them just aren't. And some of them don't do or say nice things. If that interests you, Turf Wars is for you. And I guess what I would say lastly is, man, our country is in sore need of just people who are willing to be leaders. And it doesn't mean you're going to agree with everything that a particular leader does, but I always thought that the best leaders were the ones who took an oath to really do what they thought was in the best interest of the people that elected them. And that means a little bit more than just lip service. It means literally fighting for them in a way that they can't fight for themselves.
Right.
And those are tough. Those are tough jobs. And if you don't want to take that job for the right reasons, don't take it. And
All right. Well, thank you again for being on part
we
two.
could do this all day. I
I
love
know
talking.
we could do it all day, so we will have to. Along that note, this discussion will continue next week in part three. And next week, we're going to talk about guaranteed contracts. We are going to talk about whether or not the owners colluded to prevent guaranteed contracts. We're going to talk about the integration of black players in the NFL, which I found to be a fascinating history lesson, which I did not know anything about until Dee shared the history with me. And we're going to talk more about turf wars, the specific players like Tom Brady, who he talks about extensively in the book, and how much they impacted the players because of Tom Brady's leadership and because of Dee's leadership. So join us next week on Born to be a Sports Agent. Thanks for listening, and please subscribe, share this podcast episode with any coach, athlete, or person who you think this could impact. Again, see you next week and have a great week.